There is new casting news, official and unofficial, on the Ahsoka series from Disney Plus and Lucasfilm. We're going to be here to break it down right now on the Sundowners Club. Welcome, I'm your host, Sean. To my right, my co-host, Sterling. What's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good. So we've been waiting since really before Andor even aired for some information around the Ahsoka series that Disney Plus and Lucasfilm are releasing in 2023, along with Mandalorian. And there has been some official casting news that we're going to break down first, and some unofficial casting news, rumors, leaks that have been put out by several reputable sites that have covered Star Wars traditionally, like Bespin Bulletin, MakingStarWars.net, and then other YouTube channels that we'll give credit to, like Star Wars Theory and others that have stayed on top of the Star Wars game in terms of leaks, updates, plot points, stories for series and movies. So we're going to cover that right now. And I don't know what you've heard, but I'm going to go through some of the official casting news first, and then we'll get into some of the ones that have just hit that have not been officially released by Lucasfilm. But so first of all, on the Ahsoka series, we got official casting notice of Natasha Bordizzo, who's going to be playing Sabine Wren. And for those that remember Sabine, she was on Star Wars Rebels, the animated show from Dave Filoni from several years back. And she tied into the larger story of Mandalore. She was with the Ghost crew that Ezra Bridger was involved with in the story. Fan favorite character. They've also announced that Eman Esfandi will be playing Ezra Bridger in the Ahsoka series. And of course, we know Rosario Dawson's going to be playing Ahsoka. Hayden Christensen is going to be returning as Anakin Skywalker. And so those are some of the names that have been officially released to be playing roles on the new Ahsoka series. And so that leads us into, before we get into some of the unofficial casting updates that have come out, that leads us into the plot point of what the story is going to be. As we last saw Ahsoka on the Rebels show, there was an epilogue in the the end of season 4, where it jumped forward in time, and we saw, and we'll put an image up of this, Ahsoka in a light-colored cloak with a staff, and she's meeting with Sabine, and they're basically going to find Ezra. And so we believe that happens around the time of Return of the Jedi. It skips forward from where the story ended with Rebels, where we see Ezra disappear with Grand Admiral Thrawn. And so for those that want to get up to speed on the storyline of this Ahsoka series, I don't think you have to, but I would highly recommend going back and watching the 4-season show, Star Wars Rebels. Each episode runs about 20 minutes, so it won't take you very long. There's 75 episodes in total, and there's one episode in particular that gets into the world between worlds. I think it's episode 13 of season 4. And so first of all, before we get into the unofficial or the new casting updates, do you like where the Ahsoka story is going? What are your thoughts on Ahsoka going to find Ezra from what we know so far from some of the official casting notices? What are your thoughts around, the story as we know it so far?
Well, they left that story wide open in Rebels, so I think that's what everybody's going to want to see. So they got to finish that, and I want them to bring back some of those characters, like Thrawn, of course. And
Thrawn was amazing. He was amazing in the books, right?
He was, and he was
Thrawn trilogy.
He was one of the main characters from the extended universe that they kind of brought back once Disney bought them. So, because a lot of those characters, they just they disappeared, and he was one of the characters that they made canon. So, yeah, I'm interested to see. Then there was rumors about the Night Sisters.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. So one of the new casting updates that has just come out is an actress, Ivanna Sakhno, will be playing a character called Shin. And what we're being told by reputable sources are that Shin is going to be a Jedi apprentice character, and we'll get into who her master is in just a second because there's a new casting update around that. So Shin, the rumors of speculation is that Shin is in the unknown regions where Ezra and Thrawn are thought to have gone to at the end of Rebels, where Ahsoka is going to be trying to find her friend, and she will thus encounter Thrawn. I don't know what they're going to call in the new Ahsoka series, the Unknown Regions, but I'm sure they'll give it a name. the unknown, the great unknown, or whatever. But Shin is an apprentice that is thought to have some sort of allegiance to the Night Sisters, or she was a Night Sister herself. So you know more about the Night Sisters, historically speaking, than I do, based on a few things. Like you played the game Fallen Order, right?
Yeah, I played the game Fallen Order, and you run into a Marin, I believe that's her name. She's the last known surviving Night Sister. So I'm not sure exactly how they will tie that in, unless they're gonna bring some random ones in we don't know about and introduce new characters. That takes place between episode 3 and 4,
Okay.
and then there's another game coming out, a sequel to that, next year called Jedi Survivor, which she may be in that. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure how they could tie those together.
Well, being in the unknown regions, we don't know how many were the Night Sisters. We know that they originated on Dathomir.
Right.
And getting into something we have not seen in live action before from Star Wars is the idea of witches and magic as opposed to the Force. So when we get into the unknown regions, we don't know how the Force relates to living beings in that part of space because we haven't seen that before in a live action Star Wars, in the films or anything. So, could it be that may be where Yoda originated? We don't know. There's so much potential there from what we're going to see, how Force users, use their powers or their abilities versus the Night Sisters or, who might have survived in the unknown region. So it's going to be interesting to see, is Shin a Night Sister? Does she have an allegiance to the Night Sister? Does she have, when you look at the actress that's playing her, she looks a little bit like the character that was on Fallen Order. There's some similarities there in terms of the way they look. But her master is going to be played by the actor Ray Stevenson, who I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, great actor.
He's going to be playing a character called Baylen. So the speculation about Baylen is that Baylen was a Jedi that survived Order 66, somehow ended up in the unknown regions, and somewhere in between the time of the beginning of the Empire and the fall of the Empire and the New Republic, when we're going to see this story take place, he lost his way, was corrupted, and maybe is under the thumb of Thrawn. We don't know that for sure, but it seems like maybe Shin and Baylen are going to be aligned with Thrawn. And so what do you think about the casting of Ivanna Sakhno as Shin, a potential allegiance to the Night Sister, and then Ray Stevenson as Baylen? What are your thoughts around?
I don't know Ivanna Shatno as an actress. What else was she in?
So
I
I'm
know
not
Ray
sure
Stevenson he was in Punisher Warzone.
Yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
she's
he's a
relatively
great
new.
actor. Okay.
So she's.
So I don't know.
Which I like that, right? Because in
Yeah.
Star Wars, you don't need to have. I think it's like, in the original Star Wars movies, you had Alec Guinness, this established actor, Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
But Harrison Ford was not well known in Star Wars. He'd been in American Graffiti, and then you had Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill. I like Star Wars is a big enough IP and brand to where you don't need a bunch of famous people playing in it.
They just have the challenge of they're adapting animation into real life, so they got to get characters that look roughly like them.
Match.
And I think from what I've seen, they've done a pretty good job of that in the Ahsoka
Bo-Katan
series.
and Mandalorian, Katie
Yeah.
Sackhoff hit
So
it out
I
of the park.
think they've done a pretty good job with that, but that's just an extra challenge they have.
Well, Ray Stevenson is, I think it's a great casting choice because here's a guy who's good in everything he does. And he's been in movies and series where they're not as good, but he's great in them. He's one of those
He's always
guys,
good.
that always shows up and plays the part well. So I'm excited for him. And then we finally got word. There have been rumors circulating for a while because Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is in a real-life relationship with Ewan McGregor, she has been cast as Hera Syndulla. And Hera Syndulla has a big fan following. When you go to the Star Wars, the Comic Cons, the conventions, the cosplay, that's a great character that people end up dressing up as. Women dress up as, and girls. Hera's a fan favorite. She was the captain, the pilot of the Ghost, and so we've seen her referenced. She's actually in Rogue One. She's referenced in the overhead announcement from the base when they say Syndulla before they have the Battle of Scarif. Right. So she's floated around, and we know that she survived the end of Rebels, and so we're going to see Mary Elizabeth Winstead play Hera Syndulla. I'm a big fan of Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She's played other roles in movies and series where it's action-oriented, and she's a really good actress, but not so famous that you would see her and it would take you out of the role.
Yeah, What else was she in?
She's been in a bunch of like I don't say lower budget, but like B action movies
Okay.
where it's
Yeah,
kind of like the Charlize Theron movies, the old guard type stuff.
Okay. Right.
And but she's really good, and then it gets a little bit interesting. So we had it break a few days ago that the young actress that played in House of the Dragon, I believe it was episode 6 of season 1, she is Lena Valerian. She's the teenage version of Lena Valerian in House of the Dragon. Savannah Stein. Savannah looks a lot like a young Ahsoka. So then it came out that she's going to be playing a Clone Wars version of Ahsoka. So you've got Rosario Dawson playing the Ahsoka that we saw in The Mandalorian, and you have in one episode of Book of Boba Fett, and then you have the teenage version, the Clone Wars version of Ahsoka, who's going to be played by Savannah Stein. And where does that tie in? Is that a flashback? What we're being told and what we're seeing online from reputable sources are it's not going to be a flashback. It's going to tie into Star Wars Rebels, The World Between Worlds, which was a Jedi temple that Ezra found his way into. He deciphered the symbols and got into the temple and found himself in a portal, so to speak, which was the space between time. And he started hearing all these voices, past Jedis, future Jedis that he'd never met. So he was basically in some sort of, not a convergence of the Force, but he was in a place where he could see different places in time. And he saw Ahsoka from season 2 of Rebels fighting Darth Vader, and she was going to die. And he reaches in and he saves her. So he was able to pull her out. She's missed 2 years because now she sees Ezra and he's 2 years older. And so the rumor is that it's going to tie into an Anakin that is turning into Darth Vader, the post-Clone Wars era, Order 66, when he turns bad, and how Ahsoka can either try to right that wrong, which we know she's not going to, but what would the storyline around that? I mean, obviously, you and I have talked about time travel before. I think this is a little bit different because we don't really know how Dave Filoni and crew are going to navigate that. You know, I trust Dave Filoni. Him and Jon Favreau have done nothing that I've questioned. Everything they've been involved in with Star Wars since Disney bought them has been out of the park. Everything else has been suspect. So what are your thoughts around?
Do they have full control over it though?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody's doing time travel and multiverses now, so that could lead into that. There was rumors years ago, which was mostly just, I think, wishful thinking, that they were going to retcon certain parts of the Star Wars universe.
Right.
And this could be the way they do that, but I mean, I don't know if that's actually going to happen. But I'm usually not a fan of multiverses and time travel, just because we talked about it on some other shows, how confusing and convoluted it can get.
Right.
But Star Wars is in a situation where it needs a shot in the arm. It needs something that's going to get people interested. And you have all these established characters where, you know, their endings have been told, but people still want to see those characters and things. You got to find a way to bring them in and tell those stories. And that's the way to do it. Maybe they could change things. Maybe they could do an alternate timeline when Anakin doesn't turn to the dark side. There's no telling, but you know, I don't know.
So as we wrap all this up with the casting notices, official and unofficial, we haven't talked about the final character yet. And so I don't believe it's official, but you know, there's a lot of information out there that Lars Mikkelson is going to be playing Grand Admiral Thrawn,
The voice actor.
That he played the voice of him in the animated series.
That's probably wishful thinking. I would like to see that, but you see that all the time.
It's not official yet.
Yeah, you see that all the time where there'll be a rumor and they always pick the voice actor and then they almost never get the job. So
yeah, he's 6'4", so he could definitely pull it off physically. What I will say is Thrawn is probably my favorite character, even more so than Mara Jade in the books that I've read over the last 25 years. Timothy Zahn I was a big fan of. What I think is going to happen with all these casting notices, and you talked about the multiverse, and what we saw this with Spider-Man No Way Home, which I really actually enjoyed, and it made
I enjoyed that too, but that was a one-time thing.
Right.
Yeah, so
what I think is going to happen, and you tell me what you think. I think that where Star Wars is going, I think Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to be the Marvel version, the Star Wars Lucasfilm version of Thanos. I think Thrawn is going to assemble a lot of power players around him to basically be the new threat in the galaxy. And I think it's going to tie into multiple series, like we're going to see with maybe the Skeleton Crew that Jude Law is heading up. It's coming out from Lucasfilm, and we're going to see it in Ahsoka. And eventually, I think that Mandalorian will tie into it, and any potential movies. And so I believe they had a great opportunity in the prequel trilogy with Darth Maul, and I think that it ended after one movie. I thought Darth Maul was an amazing villain.
He was. Well, then they brought him back in the Clone Wars.
They did, because they knew what they had later on. But
George Lucas had no idea that character was going to be that popular. So.
And he wanted to focus on Anakin's turn in the following two movies. But with Thrawn, they have the ability to really build out the universe and tie the stories in that feels a lot more like the Avengers and kind of what happened with the Iron Man game plan around the other characters that would tie into a larger story. I think that's where they're going. I think Thrawn is the central figure in that. And so I will be waiting to see the official announcement of who's playing Thrawn. But I trust him. I mean, the casting notices that I've just gone through, you know, we'll show images of each of these characters, the actors playing these characters. I'm excited about it. You involve all this into this story that I think is going to tie in across several different series. Again, I think it's about who are the showrunners, who are the creators of the story, and Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have not let me down yet. They're the stewards of the Star Wars brand, I believe, and I'm hoping that when the dust settles in June, when there's maybe some new leadership coming in, that one of those individuals is either the new leader or they're given creative control, a la what's happened with James Gunn and Peter Safran under David Zaslav at Warner Brothers. Give these guys creative control.
We'll see,
and we'll see what happens, because they haven't had any failures yet. I think they understand the lore, and I think they'll take us in the right direction. So just wanted to update you guys on that. Any final thoughts? I mean, are you excited for Ahsoka, the series?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I have such a bad taste in my mouth after Obi-Wan, and then covered Andor as well, and I just thought it was kind of boring. It wasn't a bad show, but it was just boring. And
but did you like Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka and Mandalorian and in one episode of Book of Boba Fett?
Yeah, but I mean that's not enough for me to, to judge what an entire show can be. I mean, I thought she did a good job, and I think it certainly has potential. I am excited that it's Filoni and Favreau behind it, not a Kathleen Kennedy project.
I'm excited for the Savannah Stein, actress playing young Ahsoka. The Clone Wars and some of the stories around her relationship with Anakin. I think we're going to get to see some of that. I'm excited for that. So we'll be here to cover it. If you like what you heard and saw today, leave a comment below, hit the like button, and most importantly, hit subscribe so that we can grow our channel and content. And TCB.